Let's read the Bible together. Ephesians chapter 3, verses 14 through 19. But first, let me ask a question. Do you pray privately? Maybe you pray at a meal. Maybe you pray with your family. Maybe you pray at church. But do you pray privately? Do you find a quiet place, and do you find a quiet time and do your best to find a quiet heart and pray to God privately? Do you understand what the goal of private prayer is? It is to pour your heart out to God. It is to crawl up into the lap of God like a child. It is to personally encounter God, to commune with Him. In prayer, a Christian, Hebrews 4:15, draws near to the throne of grace. Or in private prayer, a Christian, Psalm 27:8, seeks the face of God. It's as if we're sitting across from God, and we want to speak to Him, and we want to, by His Spirit, through His Word, hear from Him. That's what it means to pray privately with God. It's the kind of prayer that Jesus is advocating and instructing in Matthew chapter 6. And that is the kind of prayer that Paul wants the Ephesians to enjoy. And it is that kind of personal encounter with God, that communion with God, that Paul wants for the Ephesians. And you can hear it in his prayer for them, and he describes it. So here is Ephesians chapter 3, verses 14 through 19. For this reason, Paul writes, I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named. That's who he is praying to. That according to the riches of his glory, which means that God has spiritual wealth that is beyond comprehension. So according to the riches of your glory, God, that he may grant you. So this gets to what he is praying for in the Ephesians. That he may grant you to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in your inner being. He is praying for inner strength. And why does he want the Ephesians to have this God-enabled inner strength? Verse 17, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. Strength to know that Christ, if you are a Christian, is dwelling in you through the presence of the Holy Spirit. To trust that, to believe that, to rely on that, so that it gets deeper, so that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may have strength to comprehend. Now let me pause. This is getting to the end of his request. He wants the Ephesians to comprehend something. Some versions say grasp. Other versions might say understand. That is Paul's goal. So he's praying that they would have strength by the Holy Spirit to know and trust by faith that Christ is in them and with them, so that, all of that, so that they would grasp something with their mind. So the picture is that the Ephesians would go into private prayer, that they would enjoy secret prayer, that they would look to talk to God privately. And when they are in those moments, that they would comprehend and grasp something. And what is it? That you may have strength to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. It sounds like to Paul, there are not many things more important. I mean, of all the things he could pray for, there are not many things that are more important than a Christian grasping, comprehending, knowing how great is the love that Jesus has for them, a love that surpasses all knowledge. That is Paul's prayer for the Ephesians. That is my prayer for you, that you would encounter through prayer the love of Christ that surpasses all knowledge. If you could do that, then even in these times of isolation, when many of us feel alone and disconnected and distant, if you could do this, and if God would grant you the strength to know the love that Christ has for you, then you would not feel alone. Early church Bishop Ambrose wrote, "I am never less alone than when I am alone, for there I can enjoy the presence of my God most freely, fully, and sweetly, without interruption."